2. Welcome to Knitting Keeps Me Sane. I'm Shelly, aka Dr. Sane Knitter on Ravelry and Instagram. I am an astrophysicist, a stay-at-home mom, homeschooling mom to 6 children. We just moved onto a homestead that we're sort of slowly getting into this sort of lifestyle, but we're sort of just when going through our first winter. We didn't do any garden this year because we didn't have time when we moved in, because we didn't move in until late summer. But we're planning out a huge garden, and we're thinking about ducks in the spring, which I think would make my border collie very happy. We're going to see about training her to herd ducks and see how she likes it, see if she'll take to it. I think she will. She's extremely work driven, and we haven't really had a job for her that she has felt befitted her status as a border collie. So we'll try her at that and see what she thinks. And so I learned to crochet when I was 6. My mom taught me, and I really got into it when I was a little bit older, around 9 or 10, and started crocheting lots of blankets, lots of other, doilies and little things. And after working on doilies and blankets and trying to do shapings, I really felt like I had learned as much as I could with crochet, and turned to knitting because that was similar but different, and taught myself how to knit when I was 15. And my mom learned with me. We learned together from one of her old 1970s craft encyclopedia books. But the pictures of the purl stitch were so bad, so bad, that I had to ask my music teacher what was going on. And she was looking at me, she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know. That's why I'm asking you." So we worked that out, and it worked fine. And so I just started knitting fairly simple things and practicing, as we all do, and that was it for knitting and crocheting. I just sort of held on to them, and periodically would do a project of some sort, a sweater here, a scarf, or a hat there, nothing that I kept for very long. I only worked with cotton or acrylic yarns at the time because that's what I could afford. And I really didn't have access to wool, and I didn't really know anybody who did. And once I discovered wool, it was kind of like a revelation. I really enjoyed knitting so much more. It was much easier on my hands. I really hate the squeakiness of acrylic. It just grates on me. So I would buy some yarn, do the project, and I enjoyed that. And at first it was like just some sort of wool acrylic blend that I could get at Joann's, and that worked. And I would do cotton, but again, cotton hurt my hands more. So once I started really getting back into knitting and crocheting as more knitting as what I wanted to do in my off time, this happened in grad school because I was looking for something to keep my hands busy while I read or studied, or between computer, like my computer compiling for the code to run simulations and things. And I would have computer simulations running, and I needed to wait for them to finish. And so I wanted something for my hands to do without taking any mental energy, so that I could read or pay attention to whatever else was going on. Because, grad school is crazy stressful, and I needed something to help keep me sane. And what I needed was for my hands to be busy. And that really, really worked quite well. And it was, an old craft that I've been doing a long time. I just suddenly discovered I really loved it a whole lot more than I ever did before. So, it kind of was a lifeline for my sanity. And So I got married while in grad school, and we started having kids while in grad school, and so I started knitting baby things. Baby things. Talk about instant gratification. And it was wonderful because then I could see my own child wearing it, and they loved my hand knits, and that made it so worth it. And we were in Indiana at the time, so it got really cold in winter. And even so, my oldest, he just is a hothouse flower, right? Like he just is always hot. So I could give him a wool sweater and he just wouldn't want to wear a coat unless it was a full-on blizzard. So that worked pretty well to keep him happy. And my second child, the daughter, she was always cold, so she's like, give me all the wool, give me the coat, like this is good. Now that we live in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of times we just need that light wool layer underneath, a very light rain jacket to keep the wind out, or a thicker, a denser weaved, a denser gauged sweater, and that'll do, and that's good enough. But there's just no real reason here to bundle up in big fluffy snow coats. Like it just doesn't get cold enough here. So, grad school, having children, do some career stuff, decide that, academia sucked, and ran for the hills. Stayed at home, have enjoyed that, and, we just had our last baby. Not we. He didn't give birth. I gave birth. Anyway, I just had our last baby this year, and we just moved on to the homestead, which we still have not named. Don't know that we need to, but like everybody seems to name their homesteads, right? So we're kind of like, gotta name the homestead. Maybe that's just me. And so I'm just thinking, what to name it, and my husband keeps coming up with silly names, and so he's not much of a help there. But now that we're sort of back to what I consider to be a long-term stable thing, I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to spend a little more time now that some of my older children are older and they help out more. I could spend a little more time working on things like designs, knitwear designs that I have been wanting to do. And so I'm going to do it. And we'll see how that goes. And I thought, okay, during COVID, everybody is watching podcasts, everybody's trying to do podcasts, and I spend all of my free time watching podcasts, and my kids are like, you should podcast. Why? So I don't talk to you about my knitting? No, they think it would be so cool that they see all these podcasts that they watch, and oh, my mom has a podcast too. Okay, well, we'll see. And I've been teaching them to sort of knit and crochet because I really do believe that it's a good life skill. It's good for meditation. It's good for dexterity. It's good for patience. So there are just so many positive benefits, and I want them to have that. Even if it's not their thing, I just want them to learn it. And so, I work a little bit with teaching them. My middle son is left-handed, and so he gets frustrated with trying to learn from his siblings how to do some of these things, and he seems... I've been able to teach left-handed people to knit in a continental style, and that worked pretty well because it let them be as dominant in the left hand as they wanted. And stop eyeing. And that seems to have worked well. So one of the things that I'd like to do is kind of show you how I've been teaching my kids to do knitting and crocheting and things like that. That's annoying. Sorry. So I thought at some point I would show videos of them doing some of the knitting and talking through what they do as they make the stitches, and maybe other kids might see that if you want to show your kids, and it might help them think, oh, maybe it's not so passé as I thought. Maybe it is kind of okay to try. So that's like a quick summary of me and my life and where I am now. So I thought I would start out by talking about my sort of major goal in 2020 knit-wise. And my major goal was to have a handmade Christmas. And that both worked and it didn't. I was hoping to get all of the children involved and get them to hand make things, and some of them did and some of them didn't. Those that didn't had a hard time deciding what they wanted to do to begin with, and then changed their minds. Now I understand. They don't really have any hobbies where they create things, just that they personally themselves enjoy. They're into other things. So it was kind of hard to figure that out. So the two children who were old enough to be handy and crafty enough to make things for their siblings, and also had a hobby that lent well to that, did in fact make gifts for their siblings. My oldest daughter and my middle daughter. And my oldest son and my middle son bought books. So I thought, well, okay, like if you aren't gonna hand make something, books is pretty good way to go as a substitution. And so I think I'd like to try that again, but maybe take the pressure off, because the pressure for me, I like knitting sweaters. So I was going to knit everybody a sweater. And honestly, if I had just stuck to the original plan and not changed anything, it would have worked out just fine. However, I added in projects here or there, like, a baby blanket for the baby that was born in April, a month early, 3 sweaters for him, a sweater for my oldest daughter for her birthday, socks for my husband, although that was, actually that was Christmas. I just gave it to him a little early. So, but I changed it from being a sweater to being socks. And for my mom, I actually changed from, she's also a knitter, so she didn't really need me to knit her anything, although I do have plans to knit her things. What she kind of wanted was her own Chalgoon needle set and some yarn, but she just doesn't like to buy herself things. So I bought them for her, and that's what I gave to her. And I honestly felt that that was a better gift for her. That was more fitting for her, to give her something that she wouldn't give herself, but really wanted. So I'm still going to knit her the sweater. I started it, the Descent sweater, the pullover version of the worsted weight sweater by Andrea Mowry, I believe. I knit one for myself after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and then I started one for my mom, but my gauge was off a little bit. And so I ripped hers back because I wanted to do it right. And I had already finished mine, and it worked out in the gauge that I had, but I wanted hers to be just a little bit tighter. So somehow I knit slightly more loosely. I am a tight knitter, guys. Like, seriously, y'all. I'm a tight knitter. I'm just, get those stitches in there. Anyway. I mean, because this is where my stress goes, so it makes sense that, I would have tight stitches, but somehow on this one project, my typical yarn and typical gauge and gauge swatches lied. They lied. And I ended up knitting it more loosely than normal. And so I'm going to have to go back and change that and start again. And that's totally cool. That's totally fine. It'll be something that she really will wear out. She wore out the last sweater I knit her, and she's definitely knit worthy, so I'll start over and make it right. But that meant that I was, without a homemade gift for her, made an acceptable substitution, not at the last minute either, several months in advance. So I think that worked. So what I ended up with was hand knits for the husband, and then hand knit sweaters for the children. And that's what I started working on. And let me see. Had a little bit of trouble here and there. Here we go. Here are my notes. So I started the first sweater for my oldest son. I was going to go biggest to smallest because as the year goes on, making sweaters that you've decided has a deadline, it kind of drags and you kind of get a little stressed out by the end. And I thought it would be psychologically better to tackle the first one that was the largest and then go to the smallest and gain momentum rather than losing steam. And, in theory, that sounds good. But my oldest went through a huge growth spurt. So the size that I knit him was vastly, vastly too small. And not even like I knit it and it was right and it had room to grow and at the end, it was too big. No, I took his measurements in November of last year and, 2019, and finished the sweater, I think, in February. And it already, in those few months, was already clearly, he could just barely fit it. And I'm like, okay, this is not going to last till Christmas. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to put that aside. Maybe one of the younger siblings can wear it. And so I asked him to look through Ravelry with me, looking for some things, and we had an in-depth conversation about what he wanted. I will show you. Pardon me. Okay, this is it. You see this sweater? You see that? This is Viking Boat by Sandnes Garn. And then here are the sleeves, 1 and 2. And the pattern, I knit this in the Peer Gynt Sandnes Garn in black and gray, and that's exactly what he wanted. And the smallest size is supposed to be voluminous and very very flowy knit. And when I finished it, which took me a couple of months of all that, stranded and steek and the color work, the steeking, the folded over edges, and the fold over edge along the front line. Here you can see, I did the fold over edge for the neckline. So that's the back, and there's the front. So I picked up and knit that. And I did the same thing for the front hems, and you can see the really cool clasps there, one side and the other, right? And he actually picked those out as being what he wanted for his sweater. He's very into games where you have these Viking characters and these warrior types, and so he's got that whole vibe going on with the things that he's interested in. So, but in the pattern, it doesn't really tell you very much about the steeks or the neck steeks, the under, how and where those should go. They don't really give you any instructions. And so I just sort of winged it, and it worked out perfectly well. Cutting knit fabric in a rustic yarn, there's a lot of forgiveness there, thankfully. But I did have to sort of calculate here. There are some things that weren't expressly written into the pattern. And part of that is because, some of the patterns just won't include that because they expect that you already know a lot of these techniques and aren't going to, hold your hand through the entire thing. And that's what I thought. That's what I thought when I read the pattern. But the version of the pattern that I had was actually from a little pamphlet book, and the instructions for how to make those steeks and where to do shaping for the neckline and doing the neck steeks were in the book, in a separate section from the pattern, and so since I was downloading a free version of the actual pattern, it didn't include those. So thankfully I had enough experience before with doing that it wasn't a problem, and I think anybody else who has done steeks before probably wouldn't have a problem either. You will have to stop and think about it for a minute, but it's not going to require, you know, a supercomputer brain to figure out. So I actually really enjoyed this knit, and I really enjoy color work. Now, doing black and gray was a little bit of a challenge, especially since at the time we were in the previous winter. And I'm big and pregnant, and I'm sitting there and I'm hot because I'm, you know, seriously pregnant with this big blanket sweater on me. But it was a fun knit, honestly. I really enjoy color work. And so that is for my oldest child. And now that he has it and has finished growing a bunch more inches since even I started that, it fits pretty well. It is very loose, it is very drapey. He's only 13, just as of a couple days ago. And so he's still, you know, he's taller than me, but it's still pretty loose on him. I think he will be able to wear it for a good number of years. So I think that's actually a good plus. He can wear it as a jacket to take the dogs outside. He can to run and get the gate at the edge of the property or whatever, and be pretty warm, but without being weighed down too much. And that's what he likes. He doesn't like to bundle up too much. So he really loves it, and I'm really happy that he does, and I'm really happy that he has this sweater that he'll wear for probably 20 years. Now, the next sweater that I knit and gifted to the proper person in that order of largest to smallest was for my daughter, my oldest daughter, and it's the Lacy Days sweater. I knit the adult sweater. I wanted to knit the girls a set of sweaters so that they could be together, be similar, because they kind of like to do that. The middle one especially likes to do that, and so I like to do that sometimes. I usually don't anymore because I like to let them do individual things, and I get tired of knitting the same thing time after time, even if it's in different colors. So the Lacy Day sweater here. So here is the round neck. Here are the 3/4 sleeves in the color Solace, Malabrigo Rios. And I didn't aggressively, it's totally blowing out. Okay, let's see. Let's see there, if you can see that. And it's at the bottom as well. You can see it's sort of a mermaid fishtail pattern at the bottom, and I didn't aggressively block this. They're going to be wearing it, and just enough to sort of pull down the pattern. And you can see this is a really fabulous, again, the turned hem, and then you knit together with the lace portion there. And this is in the color Solace, which is really good for her, and I was concerned about this fitting her because she's also going through huge growth spurts, and she's also now taller than I am. Neither of them were taller than me 1 year ago, and so now I'm starting to feel like a real midget here. Anyway, so this is knit bottom up, as was the other sweater, and I often prefer to go top down just to get to the mindless part where I can lengthen it and without having to rip anything back. But anyway, so bottom up and around yoke, and that was really, really quite fun. And you can see the I-cord edging on the neckline there. I love I-cord edging. It is just gorgeous. Then of course on the sleeves you can see that fold over hem again with the, there we go, with the lace here again, which I just sort of pulled out when I blocked it to try to release the tension on lace to open it up and let it be seen. And again, these are 3/4 sleeves. She doesn't usually wear 3/4 sleeves, but she really likes this one, so that was good. So I did finish that, but here's the problem with that sweater. I first had to knit her birthday sweater to go with a birthday dress that my mom had made for her. And so I couldn't just go like gangbusters on it. And even before I could start her birthday sweater, which I had to start and finish before I could start her Christmas sweater, I had to finish making a baby blanket for the baby that, our newest baby that was born in April, which I finished the day I went into the hospital and they induced him. He was born a month early. There were some sudden preeclampsia I had never had before, and so I went into the hospital with some symptoms, and I had just that morning finished binding off that blanket, and I'm so happy I finished it before he was born, because that hasn't always been the case. You know, there have been enough times where the baby's here, but there's no blanket. And I had also finished 2 baby sweaters for him, and you just love doing that, right? You just like, you got to make some stuff for your new baby. So I finished those things, and then I cast on her birthday sweater, finished it just in time for her birthday, and then immediately cast on for her Christmas sweater. So, and that's where that was. Well, since I had such fun with her sweater, I skipped my middle son completely because I hadn't fleshed out what I was going to make for him, and he had definite opinions. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to knit the other little girls their sweaters, and here's what they look like. So for my middle daughter, I knit the same sweater, only Lacy Child sweater rather than Lacy Day sweater. It's the Lacy Child sweater. There's a grown-up and adult version, and I am going to make one of these for myself, and I am thinking about making one for my mom. It's not really her style, so I might just make her something else instead. Depends. I think she'd get more use out of a cardigan instead of a pullover. Maybe I'll lengthen the sleeves and make it a cardigan. I don't know. I have to talk to her and see what she wants. Anyway, this is the same thing, Malabrigo Rios in, let's see if I can get a good picture of, no, you can't tell anything there. Well, so it's so blown out. This is a fairly good representation here of the color. It's called English Rose, a Malabrigo Rios again. And her sleeves, I did more of an extra repeat on the lace cuff, and I really liked it. I didn't repeat that for the younger child just because she tends to get into more stuff, but so I did an extra repeat on that. And then here, of course, is the bottom of her sweater, and I was able to sort of just go through that pretty well without too many problems. Again, that same I-cord bind off here. I love an I-cord bind off. It's just very neat, it's not even that hard to do. It takes a little time, but it makes such a beautiful edge. So I successfully knit this before Christmas. And then, okay, I knit this one for my youngest daughter. And again, so you can see here that I didn't do that extra repeat for the lace on the cuff. Again, here's that beautiful folded over edge, which I absolutely love. And bottom up, you might be able to, now it's got a weird sheen on it here. That's actually because she wore it all day yesterday and got dog food on her sweater, so I'm gonna have to wash it. I don't know how this happened, but I asked her, hey sweetie, where's your sweater? I want to show it on my podcast. It's downstairs. Okay, where? It's dirty. How did it get dirty? It has dog food on it. So she was royally offended. Anyway, so this is in Matisse Blue. This is pretty blown out here. It's a pretty dark blue. Okay, see, now you can see the dog food really well. Okay, so this is still pretty blown out, but I'll have links in the show notes so that you can check out. Well, you can just go to Ravelry, Dr. Stain Knitter. This is on my project page. So anyway, we had a bit of a to-do about it because I was trying to knit them in personalized colors, and her favorite color now is green. It used to be purple, and they didn't have the right green or the right purple for the sweater that in the Malabrigo Rios, and I wanted it all to be the same yarn, to have the sort of same depth of color and squishiness for all three girls, and they all like the soft, so I wanted to keep to that. And so, but that Matisse Blue, I just loved the Matisse Blue, so I asked her if that was okay, and I showed her a couple of different options. I even showed her some greens, but they tended more toward the yellow greens, and I'm just not a big fan of the yellow greens. So I showed her the blue, the Matisse Blue, and I asked her, so, oh yeah, I love it. Okay, great, perfect, awesome. The yarn comes in, I hate it. This is the Matisse Blue you saw, and I pulled it up. She said, no, I never said I liked it. So all the while I'm knitting this sweater, which I think is absolutely gorgeous, and she's like, no, I don't like it. Okay, so I finally finished it and gave it to her because, you know, 3-year-olds are mercurial, you just don't know. So I finished it, gave it to her, she pulled it out of the bag. Oh, I love it! And then she wore it all day and wouldn't take it off. So I'm pretty gratified that she really does like it. She has asked for a green sweater next time. I have a green I know she will love. It's in a different yarn. And so that brings me really to my middle son. Let's do him now. He really wanted a fingering weight. He didn't know it was fingering weight, but that's what I had. And that's what I like to do my color work in more often, is in fingering, and with dragon's breath over the top. First he said he wanted a dragon on it, and I'm like, man, I don't know. And so there was this design that had these swirlies across it, and I thought, oh, this could be dragon's breath over water. And, you know, as part of his like D&D, Magic the Gathering, and all those video games that he likes to play and things, and Ninjago that he likes to watch with like the dragon, all that stuff. So, and he liked that idea, and I had picked out the yarn. Then I had to size up, and I don't have enough yarn. So I'm trying to be creative about how to substitute. You know, I'm going to switch blues in the middle so that it's clearly a delineation between the water, which has a mirrored rippling effect to the fiery, flamey breath on the top in orange, and then the bottom it's, you know, a blue with a darker blue to show you the swirl. So it's not really like, it's not in your face color work. You can just see that there's just some sort of texture. It's more of a texture color work, because the patterning is in a darker blue with a bit of sparkle to it, and it really looks good, but it's not necessarily obvious. If you're standing away, you're like, what is that? What is that? And when you see it up close, you're like, oh, I can see that. And then the top I was going to do in a little bit lighter, brighter blue to contrast against the flame part. But then I'm going to have to do the same on the sleeves, and it was just getting complicated. And I had to do that after I realized I didn't have enough of the one color to do just the whole thing in that mid blue tone. So having to fix so many different things, and it's a fingering weight colorwork sweater, and I was getting, this was in November already, that I don't even have half the sweater done, and I still have the baby's Christmas sweater to do, and my husband's socks to do, I said, okay, I can't do this. And then I remembered, oh, hey, what about that sweater you knit at the beginning of the year that didn't fit? And so it was not in blue. Blue is my middle son's favorite color, which is why it didn't occur to me until later. And they had actually taken this sweater out and worn it a few times. Different children. Because when we moved and then it turned to fall and they found some of my hand knit sweaters, and I hadn't kept this out because I didn't know who I was going to give it to. So I asked my middle son, I said, do you remember that green sweater? And he's like, yeah, I think so. So I brought it out to show him. This is the Classic Cardi by, where are my notes here? It's the Classic Cardi by, oh, it's just Sirdar. And it was just a classic cardi, and I don't usually just go for, just a classic raglan, but I did with this because that's what my oldest had picked out, and it's got really nice sort of a texture there where they do the raglan increases, the way that they do it with to get sort of a raised stitches here was really nice. It's just a classic cardigan, which my middle son is seriously a fashion plate. He knows what he likes, and he likes, the nice hat, fedora, different hats. Like he's our GQ man. And so I thought, oh, he might like this. So this yarn is what is it? Schmutzarella Groovy. I always roll my R when I say schmutzarella. I don't know. It's schmutzarella, the Groovy DK in Expelliarmus. So I just loved it. And I think this green sweater really sets off my middle son's hazel eyes. And then I have these metal buttons there, which he really likes too. So I asked him if he would like that for Christmas. Yeah. Perfect. Great. So that is his sweater for Christmas, and I still intend to make him the I consider it dragon's breath over water. I am still going to finish making that because the final size that I did cast on will last him for a while, because I went fairly big after being scared that my older two's growth spurts would ruin everything. I sized up for everybody else. And usually I'm pretty good about estimating size to give them some room to wear it for a year or two. But apparently those pubescent growth spurts, I did not plan for that very well. So, but my oldest daughter, she also, she hit one of those big growth spurts. She's now 11.5, and so from 10.5 to 11.5, she grew a bunch of inches. And my older son, again, bunch of inches. And so my ability to estimate what size they were going to be in 10 months or a year was severely impaired. So now, the sweater I'm going to make for my middle son it should still work out, should be fine. It should be light enough that, I can finish it and he'll still be able to wear it next fall. So we'll see. Now, so everybody has a hand knit sweater, all of my children, except the baby. It's the day after Christmas. He still doesn't have a sweater. I wasn't able to get it done in time. And it's not even that hard of a sweater, but I had to choose between finishing his sweater and spending time with the children and making memories with them. So, and really it makes no sense to spend all of my time closeted away knitting and not providing them with food, not doing activities with them, not baking cookies, not singing Christmas carols, not doing these things that make real memories and real traditions, just to make them a sweater that my youngest is never going to remember he didn't get on Christmas. And as an older child, when, you know, if he hears about it, oh, I didn't get it finished in time, he's unlikely to care. My other children, when they hear those times where I have failed to make a deadline for them, they didn't care because I still finished it and I still gave it to them, and they still were like, yeah, you gave it to me and I knew you loved me, and that's all that matters, and that's all they care about, and that's all really I care about. But it was really a bitter pill to swallow that I wasn't able to give my last baby, he's going to be our last, a hand knit sweater to show him that I love him and that, you know, he was special, and they're all special. I just wanted him to feel that too, but I wasn't able to finish his, and I will finish it within a couple of days. I don't have it with me because it's in my knitting chair, but it is the Elevenses sweater by Lisa Shamari. It's in Cascade 220, so I didn't go for, you know, the super luxury yarn because I know he's gonna be, you know, he's not even 1 year old. Like, he's gonna be doing lots of drooling, lots of dripping of food, lots of crawling on the floor in this sweater, and I wanted it a little bit hardier, and it's going to be a top layer, not next to the skin. So I went for Cascade 220 because Cascade 220 is a good workhorse yarn, and I do love it, and it does soften quite a bit with wear. So I finished the body. I just need to do the sleeves and the neck and button bands, and it's done. So in a couple days it'll be done. Even given that I have very little knitting time every day, maybe an hour every day spread across the day, I should still be able to get it done within a couple days. So that's what I've done. After I finish it, I'll show you. It's really nice, and it's going to be nice. And I'm going to actually knit more from the collection. Garden Collection Volume 2 is Hobbit, the Hobbit based as a theme, and we love Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. All of my children love it. They quote from it, and so filthy hobbitses. Anyway, so I'm gonna make him a whole bunch of the items from it. I think next I'm gonna make the little overall pants and the cloak. He's gonna be so cute. We're gonna dress him up like a hobbit and take a bunch of pictures, and then that's what I'll hold over him as, you know, I'll show your girlfriend when you bring them, when you're dating someone, and you'll be so embarrassed. You know, I'm that mom. So anyway, so that's what I have been doing. The handmade Christmas was pretty much a win in the fact that my children were very happy with what I gave them. We did end up doing a few store-bought gifts because my husband just really never had time to craft anything for each one of them, and there are things that they want that I'm just not going to buy them just as a general course, but that for Christmas, you know, yeah, I'll relent and let them have some things that I think are not worth the money or whatever, you know, just loosen up and be a little less rigid about it and let them have a little fun with some things, or, you know, give them group gifts. So my husband did that, and we gave them these. And my mom, she hand knit something for everybody and had everything done, like, I don't know, August. She knit each one a hat and cowl, and for some of them she also knit leg warmers. She was better at this than I was. But anyway, she also knit some booties and hats for the baby. So I think really I needed to lower my requirements of what I wanted to do and my expectations for myself, and let myself have a little more leeway to enjoy non-gift projects. And I think that's what I'm going to do this year. For Christmas is I'm going to go ahead, I am still going to make them something. It's probably going to be socks. They love hand knit socks. So I'm probably going to hand knit them all socks. I'd like to do Christmas stockings. I had wanted to do the Victorian stocking, which is fingering weight. I've done 2 or 3 versions of it, but I just don't think it's their style, and we've gone more toward a homier vibe in our house. So I think I'm going to knit a little bit more standard looking stocking and personalize it with the colors, because we each have colors that we prefer the most, and that's how we're going to do it, I think. So I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll knit them Christmas stockings and then fill their Christmas stockings with little things that they'll love, candy, maybe a game or something, little video game. So that's what I'm thinking for Handmade Christmas 2021. But there you go. That's what I've done. So I think I'll end here. I hope everyone had a good Christmas, isolated and distant for safety, but hopefully with enough connections to those you care about to make it loving and peaceful and happy. I hope everybody is able to keep healthy during this COVID times, and I'll see you some other time. Bye.